So today we'll be looking at plant anatomy and tissues. Plant anatomy and tissues. Alright, so before we start the class, I hope all of us had a very wonderful weekend. And we read off from last class. The last class we had, we actually revised on everything we read so far. Okay, so today, please, like I always say, if you have any question during the class, just unmute your mic and ask me the question, okay? As I'm sharing my screen, I'll not be able to go through the comments or see you raising your hand or using emojis. So you can unmute your mic and then ask your question. But also, so every one of us be coordinated. Are you with me? So for us to be coordinated and not cause unnecessary distractions, when you want to unmute your mic and ask a question, just do it probably when I'm done explaining something, then you can ask your question. I always do my best to see that all of us are being carried along. And to ensure to that, I'll always ask for feedback after probably a major explanation, and then we'll continue. Okay, so our topic today once again is plant anatomy and tissues. Plant anatomy and tissues. Last week we looked at classification of plants. We talked about higher plants and lower plants. But today we want to now take a closer look at the anatomy of the plant. We want to now look at the internal. When you talk about anatomy, you're talking about what? Internal structure of an organism. Okay, anatomy comes from the word. Anatomy means what? To cut up. To cut up. CUTUP. And once more, hope every one of us is our biro and our pen. Like I always say, not everything can be captured in a slide. Okay, just like now, I've mentioned what anatomy actually means, and it's not in our slide. So if you have your pen and paper, I will slow down so you can take notes, okay? So anatomy means what? To cut open, to cut up. So when we talk about plant anatomy, we are what? Studying the internal structures of plants. You are now saying, okay, this mango tree in front of my compound, I want to see what it's actually made up of from the inside. Yes, I can see the beautiful structure. I can see it is a very strong tree. Yes, it can resist the push and pull of wind, the push of wind. It has been standing here for close to 10, 15 years now. What is actually responsible for this plant to be able to what, stand, develop and grow? Now scientists said okay, for us to be able to understand, let us what, cut it open. That is what we mean by what, anatomy. To what, to cut up, to cut something open. So we will now review the internal features. What actually what made them up. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
Sorry? All of us are together, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much for the feedback. Now, growing up, let me give us an example to ground this knowledge. Because once you understand what anatomy is all about, then every other thing we'll be talking about this night is just going to flow. Growing up, my parents, they usually buy for me this toy. I normally prefer aeroplane, the one you pull a wire at the back, a tiny rope, and when you leave it will now start going forward. But as it's moving forward, the fan is also rotating. As young as I was, my curious mind, I was not just satisfied with pulling the rope and keeping the aeroplane on the ground to just move. I asked very simple questions. Why is it not flying? Why is it that when I pull the rope, it now begin to move? Why don't it move on its own? Why is it that when it is moving, the fan is also rotating? Now, looking at motion, there is something else internally, something within it that is what bringing about the motion, bringing about the propelling of the fan. Something that I am not seeing on the outside. So, what did my little mind do? We don't have access to screwdriver and stuff. What did he do? He decided to what? Break it open. Are we together? So bringing in that aeroplane, smashing it to the ground, I discovered how you smash it to the point it will now crack. We will now quietly, delicately put our hand, delicately I mean, put our hand between that crack and now tear it open. I'm tearing open that aeroplane in such a way, I and my junior brother, in such a way that you can be able to see the inside and appreciate it without damaging it so much. But then, as we now tear it open, remove the back, we now understood that what inside it is what some sort of a spring. When you pull the wire, it kind of like makes the string to do what? To kind of like coil up together. When you release it, it will now what? Recoil. That recoiling motion causes the tire to what? Propel forward, and at the same time the fan to what? Rotate. Ah, I and my brother, we are so happy. But then the problem is that we are not able to close it back because we actually damaged it to open it up. Now, this is just a little story, okay, to help us understand what you're actually studying. Now, likewise, scientists um around the 18th century and the rest, they were able to look at trees. They loved it. They admired it. This tree can stand there in okay, when it is raining, you run inside to withstand rain to hide from the harsh weather, the harsh rain and all. But this tree has been standing here. Why is it that whenever the strong wind is blowing, grasses are easily swayed about? Maize will even break at some point. But then you see a mango tree, it is standing firm. They were not satisfied. They said something must be inside of this mango tree. Maybe there is a way that each cells, each structures were arranged that enable them to what? To withstand such pressure. That was one. Secondly, they asked another question. How is it that this tree, it is very tall, it has very what? Tall stem, very branching. The branch, the leaves, everything. And all of us know that nutrient is what? Within the soil. How is it that this same mango tree I'm looking at, this same cassava tree, this same cassava plantation, this same what's it called? Iroko tree, one of the tallest tree you can ever think of. This Iroko tree. How is it that despite its height, it is able to transport water and nutrients from the soil up to its very topmost? The the same answer was there is something within it. There is something maybe inside of it that allows it to do all these things. And also, lastly, they notice that plant cells, okay, for example, a plant now, you can do this simple practical. We did it in our year one. If you bring a can now, you put a beans seedling inside it. Then you bring a big carton, cover the plant, but then cut open a tiny square at one side, keep it under the sun. If you leave that thing there for like 1 week, 2 weeks, you will notice the plant to start what? Bending towards the sunlight. They ask another question. Why is it that this is bending towards the sunlight again? And the answer lies where? Within the structure. So there is something inside of every tree, inside of every plant that is making it to do what? Respond the way it responds to the environment, able to grow the way it is growing, transport nutrients, and also what? To store up nutrients. Are we together? Now, in anatomy of the plant, when we talk about plant anatomy, we are not talking about what? How can we able to access the inside the internal structure of this plant, to cut it open to access the internal structure so that we will what? Understand what is resulting to all these things. Now, this is the whole thing we're doing this night. I will now take us through this study to cut open some plants to make us what? Able to see what is inside of it. Now, if you are writing, you can write. Plant anatomy is the study of the internal structures of plants. It helps us to understand how plants grow, how they transport nutrients, and what respond to their environment. I repeat, plant anatomy is the study of internal structures of plants, how they grow, transport nutrients, and what respond to their environment. Now, last week we established that there are diverse varieties of plants, diverse varieties of trees and all. Now, in flowering plants as well, you can now categorize flowering plants into two: monocotyledon, dicotyledon. Are we together? Please, you can write. Flowering plants can be classified into two based on their seed leaf. Flowering plants can be classified into two based on their seed leaf. That's the leaf that comes with the seed. I repeat again. Flowering plants can be classified into two based on their seed leaf. Number one, monocotyledon, and two, dicotyledon. Monocot for short, dicot for short. Monocotyledon, dicotyledon. Full stop. Now, let me explain. What is cotyledon? Cotyledon simply means seed leaf. That is the very first leaf a plant what grows. Are we together? Okay. If you bring a maize and you plant a maize, there is something you are going to notice. Once that maize grows and starts germinating, it will spring up only one leaf. The first leaf that is going to come out from the seed as it breaks open is just one. So that leaf that comes out is called what? A single leaf, monocotyledon. If you should plant beans for say now, if that bean seedling springs up, you are going to notice that it will what? Open into two leaves. So scientists now studied and they discovered something. Every single plant that when you plant them, they open up as one leaf. Only one leaf you are going to see. All of them have a peculiar feature. All of them have this feature you see in them. But every other tree you plant, and they rise up with two seedlings, all of them also have what? A unique feature. So the ones that had two seedlings differ from the one that had one seedling. Are you with me? So these features allow them to what? Able to categorize them into two: monocot and dicot. Now, remember, we are looking at internal structures of plants. That's our topic today. And now we are saying, okay, the internal structure of plants can be further divided into two depending on what? The how many seed leaves they germinate with. We can now say, let us study these ones that germinate with just one leaf. We now study them separately because they have similar internal features. Another one that has also what? Two seedlings. All of them have similar internal features. We will now study them separately. Are we still together?
Yes, sir.
Are we together? Okay. So let's move on. Now, a general overview of monocotyledon and dicotyledon. Okay, this is what I've explained. Monocotyledons have one seed leaf. Cotyledon means seed leaf, okay? While dicot has two. They differ in their root structure and stem arrangement and leaf venation. Now, example of monocots include maize, rice, and lily. Example of dicot include beans, mango, and sunflower. Alright, first of all, you can divide plant into three major components: the root component, the stem, and the leaf. The root, the stem, and the leaf. So if you want to now study their internal features, you are going to study the internal features of the what? Root. Then we'll now come up study internal features of the what? The stem. And finally, we'll now look at the internal features of the what? The flower. So it is like this: the roots, the stem, and the flower. All right. So let's go. For root anatomy, we will now remember we are studying them monocotyledon versus dicotyledon. So in monocotyledon, you find out that they have what? Fibrous root system. They have what is called fibrous root system. The roots what? The roots grow horizontally and they are what? Fibrous in nature. They are very shallow and they don't grow deep into the soil. Also, if you what? Take a transverse section means cutting it through. Take a transverse section across the what? Root and open it up. You will discover that it has what? A large central pit and the xylem arranged in what? A ring form. So these are the key features you should know. There are so many of them, but these are the primary ones that you have to know. Okay, so I'm trying to see how I will explain this so all of us are going to
Excuse
flow
me,
with
sir.
this.
Please, they have a large central word, sir.
Pit, Pith, pit.
Yes.
They have a
Thank you,
large
sir.
central pit. Thank you. If you see a picture of a transverse section, you notice something. After the epididymis, you find the cortex. All these ones are not here, okay? That's what I'm telling us. But if you want, you can include them. The ones I left here are the key ones that you need to know. So after the epididymis, you find the cortex. The cortex contains the parenchyma and the rest. After the cortex, you will now find what? The vascular system. Vascular system is like I told us, just like you have veins and arteries in your blood that are the vascular system in your blood. Are you with me? Just I'm trying to paint a picture with this that helps us transport nutrients and water from your head to your feet. Likewise, in plants, we have vascular system that helps to transport food and nutrients, which is the what? The xylem and the phloem. So now this in monocotyledon, the xylem are arranged in ring format. The phloem also arranged in what? Ring format. Okay. So these are the three key things you find in the roots of a monocotyledon. Number one, it has a fibrous root system. Number two, it has a large central pit. And number three, the xylem, the vascular system are arranged in what? In rings. And let's look at dicotyledon. Dicotyledons and a plant. You bring a beast now, bring one of its roots or a mango tree, and you cut it open. First of all, when you look at a mango tree, you notice that it has a tap root system. Its roots are woody and somehow they grow deep into the soil. Unlike maize, have you seen maize before? Maize has this fiber looking what roots. But in dicotyledon, they have very strong roots, tap root system that grows deep into the soil. If you bring these roots and probably cut off a section of it, a transverse section, put it in a microscope and look at it, you will not see any central pit. You observe that the central pit sometimes is too small or it does not exist at all at all. So, okay, I think this explanation will now help our memory small. The central pit, actually, what the central pit does is that it stores nutrients, it serves as what? A food storage site. So it serves as a food storage site. In small plant, in plants like maize that don't grow deep, it needs to what? Store up some of these nutrients. It collects together. So that's why it has large central pit. Also, large central pit allows for what? Balance. It helps them what? Balance their structure well. But now in taproot system, it is wide already and it grows deep into the soil. It does not have what? A central pit. Sometimes it is too small. Also, the most important thing here is this: the xylem of dicotyledonous roots are arranged in star shape. It has what? A star shaped xylem. The xylem are what? Arranged to form what? A star shape. I wish I had a picture that shows us how it looks like. I want us to follow me. The xylem are arranged in such a way that it forms a star shape. In monocotyledon, the xylem are arranged in what? Circular rings. That's a ring. In dicotyledon, they form what? A star shape. So let's move on. But one of the common feature in two of them is that two of them contains what? Endodermis. The two of them contains endodermis. Endodermis is found just after the what? Cortex. It is what regulates what goes in and come out from the what? Vascular tissue. Any question? Is there any question? So I believe all of us understood. All right. Now we have finished discussing about the stem, about the root. Sorry. So let's now look at the stem. If you should look at the stem, first of all, the stem, as you observe, is almost like the longest part, the part that grows in length the most in trees. So what is this thing about the stem that helps it look very slender and beautiful most times, or woody and thick? If you now take a transverse section, if you cut through it, just like you are seeing it now, you now bring a knife and cut through them. That's called transverse section. Another one is longitudinal section. That's you cut it lengthwise. It is longitudinal section. So if you take a transverse section across what a maize plant, remember maize are monocotyledon, you are going to reveal what a vascular bundle that is scattered. A vascular bundle that is scattered. Remember, monocotyledon in their roots, you find out that what the vascular bundle are arranged in ring format. After the root, once it comes up to the stem, the vascular bundle is now what? Scattered. It has no defined cortex, no defined. Please, when you talk about vascular bundle, we are now talking about xylem and phloem combined, okay? It's still the same thing as saying the xylem is scattered within. It has no defined cortex. Both the cortex and the vascular bundles are what? Joined together. And lastly, there is no secondary growth. There is no secondary growth. This is very common in what? Annual plant that you plant now and they die there stay, like maize. There is no secondary growth. That's why a maize tree will be as slender as it looks till it dies. Now, let's take a look at dicotyledonous stems. When you cut them open, you discover that their vascular bundles are arranged neatly in rings. It has what? A cortex and pit, thin stint. That means it has a central pit and what? A cortex. In monocortex, I'm sorry, I think I mentioned something. It has what? No defined cortex. That means both the cortex and central pit are joined together. Whereas in dicotyledons, the cortex is what? Separate from the what? Central pit. And lastly, dicotyledonous plants can undergo secondary growth. They can undergo secondary growth. That's why you see a mango tree, it will keep increasing in size. Almost like every year, it will add one range, something called annular ring. It will what? Keep increasing in size. Is there any question up to this point? So everybody is following me. Okay. So lastly now, we have looked at the roots. From the roots we came up, we examined the stem. I want to now look at the what? The leaf. The leaf. So first of all, as we all know, the leaf is a very important organ in the plants. All of them are important, okay? Stem is very important. Absorption of what nutrients helps in anchoring the plant to the soil. It helps to keep it firm and protect it from what adverse conditions, environmental conditions. That is, it withstands pressure and all. You come to the stem. The stem is beautiful as well. The stem what helps elongate the plant. It tells the plant what you're able to reach sunlight. The stem enables what resist bending and breaking. The stem is a beautiful structure on its own. But the leaf is what a very key organ too. It's what is I used to call it the factory house of the whole plant. Why? Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis. This term is not new to any of us here, I believe. Photosynthesis. That's one of the things we are taught in, I believe, secondary school. That's how plants are able to use sunlight and make their own what food. Presence of carbohydrates and water. When you now enter probably higher levels, you now start hearing things like Kelvin Benson cycle, big terms. Okay, so let's get back. Monocotyledonous leaf, monocot leaves. So we bring a leaf from a maize and we now cut open the leaf and look at it from under a microscope. What are we going to see? Parallel, parallel venation, parallel venation. So it means that what first of all, venation here is just like if you look at your arm now, you should see what a system of veins running across your arm. Okay, venation, vascular system, that are all what vessels that carry something. But in plants, instead of veins, what we have is what vascular bundles, xylem and what phloem. So in monocotyledonous leaves, they have what parallel venation. The vascular bundle run what straight and parallel to each other. If you bring a maize leaf, you will notice that there is this like straight line that joins from one end to another. That's how it looks like. But now, let's come down to dicotyledonous leaves. They have reticulate venation. Reticulate means something interconnected. That is, it branches out. That's a net-like what connection. Example: bring a mango tree. You will notice that a mango leaf. Notice that its vascular system branches out repeatedly, almost forming like what an actual vein structure. So now up to monocotyledonous leaves again, they have stomata on both surfaces. Stomata on both surfaces. In dicotyledonous leaf, they have what more stomata on the lower surface. They have no palacidae layer on monocotyledonous leaves. Dicotyledonous leaf has what distinct palacidae layer, palisade and spongy mesophyll layer. I think I need to explain this one. There is a special cell in the leaf called the mesophyll. The mesophyll is what is responsible for what actual it houses the chlorophyll responsible for photosynthesis. So it's like the cell in charge of photosynthesis. Now, in monocotyledonous leaf, the mesophyll is not divided into layers, whereas in dicotyledonous leaf, it is divided into two layers: palisade and non-palisade layer and what spongy layer. Are you with me? So let's recap again. Monocotyledonous leaf, they have parallel venation, more stomata on both surface and what
On both
palisade
surfaces,
what layer.
no palisade layers.
My mic is on, sorry.
Oh,
Alright. So we are now done with an overview. Please. I was tempted to say we are now done with everything anatomy of the leaf. Honestly speaking, we did not even do anything. We just did more like an overview of what a plant anatomy. Just like in secondary school, we are taught parts of the body: my head, my shoulder, my knees, my toe. When you now enter higher levels, and you now see anatomy, just anatomy of the upper limb, you will study it one whole year. that kind of something. You should sorting it one whole year, but then they will compress it under 3 months. Well, thank God though. All right, plant tissues. We are still on anatomy though. Plant tissues. First of all, what are tissues? Tissues are group of cells performing similar function. Tissues are group of cells performing what? Similar function. Now in plants, there are some group of cells that come together and are responsible for one specific function. Since this class started, we have mentioned about phloem and xylem. Now, xylem is like a group of cells that come together in charge of what? Transporting water from from the root to the leaf. Phloem is a group of cells that comes together responsible of transporting of food from the leaf down to the what? Root. So there are two major types of tissues in plants: meristem meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. Meristematic tissue and permanent tissue. So meristematic tissue are tissues capable of what? Cell division. They are tissues
Excuse me,
capable of
sir.
cell
Please
division.
don't be too fast, though.
Okay, you are right. I'm so sorry. Meristematic tissue are tissue that are what? Responsible for cell division. You can say that they are the actual what? Growth tissue. They are the what? Growth tissue. They help the cell, the plant, they are responsible for what? The plant to enlarge in size, produce structures, grow, and the rest. Whereas permanent tissue are what? The main differentiated tissue specialized for what? A specific function. So now let's look at them one by one. Meristematic tissues. Meristematic tissues can be classified into three depending on where they are what? Found. They will classify into three depending on where they are found. Apical meristematic tissue. Apical meristematic tissue. These ones are what? They are found at the roots. They are found at the roots and the what? Shoot tips. So what the apical first of all means what? At the end of something. So what does it do? It allows the root to what? Grow deeper, and then the shoot, the tip of the shoot to do what? Continue growing what? Tall. So it allows one linear what? Growth. Then secondly, we now have what? Intercalary meristems. Intercalary meristems. They are found at internodes. Found at internodes, and they help what? In regrowth of grasses. Then lastly, we have lateral meristems. Lateral meristems. They help what? They causes secondary growth. Secondary
Excuse me,
growth of
sir. Excuse me, sir. That's in intercalary. You said they are found in the
the,
internode. Please, what is
yes.
the function?
They help what?
Okay.
They help. Okay. Are you listening? Now,
Yes, sir.
example, look at grass now. There are many found in plants that are normally cut down or used for grazing. Now, when you see, okay, let me start from this. Apical meristems are found at tip shoots. So the plant will what? Keep growing tall from the what? Either of the tip. If you should cut a tree now into two, let's say a mango tree, you cut it into two. It doesn't just start regenerating again. No, you have what? Cut off the apical meristem with it. It cannot regrow vertically again. What does it do? It has what? Sprout from the side and start growing up. Why? Apical mesoderm is at the tip of it, so it allows it to just continue growing tall from one end. So if you should cut it into two, it can no longer start growing again. Are you with me? Why? You have cut off the part that is responsible for that growth. But now, if you now notice, unlike your mango trees and your maize and the rest, Something like grass now, elephant grass, if you now cut it into two, give it days again, it will continue growing. Now, at each point, there's a part in it that you should have a diagram called the internodes. There are what? Intercalary meristems here. So, at any point, you should cut it off along the whole entire length. It will enable it to do what? To germinate from there, just keep what? Growing. So, it's one of what? Adaptive features of plants that are prone to grazing. Alright, so back to what we are saying. Lastly, lateral meristem. Lateral meristem. These are responsible for what? Secondary growth. They are responsible for secondary growth. Now, it is this meristem that allows plants to increase in width, increase in size. Example, vascular what? Cambium. Vascular cambium. Vascular cambium. Should I explain this? It is found between the phloem and the xylem. Okay, don't worry, this is for your higher class. But it enables what? Depositing of xylem inside and phloem outside. And wow, it forms what is called what? An annular ring per year. The vascular cambium is responsible for playing the what? Annular ring. That's why every year it seems as if your mango is what? Growing bigger. Don't worry. When you get to higher class, they will explain this part in detail. So for today we are looking at what? The overview. So we just explore the meristematic tissue. Now let's look at permanent tissue. Permanent tissues are just three simple tissues: the parenchyma, collenchyma, and sclerenchyma. Parenchyma, collenchyma, sclerenchyma. In secondary school, there is this friend of mine called chyma. So I used to call this three of them the family of chyma. Now, in parenchyma, there are responsible for storage, photosynthesis. Whenever you hear parenchyma, what should come to your mind is what? Storage and what? Photosynthesis. Collenchyma, they provide flexibility. There are the things that allow your trees to be able to bend without breaking. Then sclerenchyma, they provide what? Strength. So parenchyma, storage and photosynthesis. Collenchyma, flexibility. Sclerenchyma, strength. S there, strength. Sclerenchyma, strength. Collenchyma, flexibility. Parenchyma, storage and photosynthesis. So now your parenchyma are what? Thin walls. Your collenchyma are what? Unevenly thick. Whereas the sclerenchyma are what? Very thick and unified walls. That's why they serve for what? Strength. Any question? Okay, so I believe all of us are following. Now, lastly, what I'm going to need this night is what? The type of tissue called complex permanent tissue. Complex permanent tissue. Now, there are two types of this complex permanent tissue. Number one is what? The xylem. We have mentioned this since the start of this class. Second one is what? The phloem. Xylem and what? Phloem. Now, the xylem transports water, minerals, okay, while the phloem transports what? Food. The xylem are made up of what? Tracheae, vessels, fibers, and parenchyma. These are cells. Whereas the phloem are made up of what? Companion cells, fibers, parenchyma, and sieve tube. Okay, alright. You are not to concentrate yourself with the structure, okay? You don't need to memorize structure here. What you should know is their main function. Their function. Xylem is concerned with transport of water and minerals, whereas phloem is concerned with what? Transport of food. Transport of what? Food. Alright. So up to this point, is there any question? Okay. So practical observation of
Sir,
plant tissue.
sir,
Alright.
that
I'm listening.
xylem, what is the function of the xylem?
Xylem is
I can't see
concerned with
your screen again, sir.
Okay, xylem is concerned with transport, transport of water, nutrients and mineral from the roots up to what? The leaf. Whereas phloem is concerned with what? Transport of food. So xylem talks about what? Water, mineral salts and what? Um water and what? Mineral from the roots up to the leaf. Whereas phloem talks about what? Transport of food. Food, that's glucose produced by the what? The leaf. So a practical work that you are teaching with theory. Please, you can do this practical if your school has the facility. Now, use a transverse section and a longitudinal section of a stem. You get a stem, you cut it, stem, root, and leaf. Now, you stain them using sarafinin or iodine. It should just enable you to view it properly in your microscope. Now, use a microscope and now identify all these things we have what been saying since. So if your school has the facility and they will be willing to let you use it, you can run this practical. Okay. Maybe let me see how my day will go on Monday. I can do it, video it too. I'll probably cut up some plants, then visit my school, this histology library, histology lab, and then look up these things. But it depends on how my day will be going on Monday because it's fine. Alright. So this brings us to the end of the class. So let me summarize. Monocotyledon and dicotyledons differ in their what? Internal structure of root, stem, and leaf. Plant tissue can be divided into two: meristematic and permanent. Meristematic are tissues responsible for what? Growth. Meristematic, growth. Permanent tissues are responsible for what? Special function. Alright, so I want to thank each and every one of us that were able to join the class.